Hi, welcome in. Today I'd like to share a few yin poses that I like to do when I just feel like I need to take some time, slow down, turn inward. So we'll go through two yin poses. We'll then do a twist to do a little bit of a counter and take a moment to find a seat. So what we have today is, in terms of props, I've got a blanket. You might want two blankets. I've got two blocks. You might want 2, 3, 4 blocks. So really feel free to grab as much as you want. And we'll go ahead and get started. So if you're using a blanket to sit on, you can come to sit on your blanket and extend both of your legs long. You want to remove any flesh beneath the sits bones. And then as we're starting off with a yin shape, having your legs be a bit more passive, right? In vinyasa, we tend to find that engagement. So we're going to encourage our legs to be a little bit more passive. You might choose to have your feet about hip width distance, maybe a little wider, maybe a little bit narrower. So again, depending on how your legs feel, how your hips feel, it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. First variation, you might start to fold forward, let your head get heavy, perhaps palms face up. And this is where you might choose to be. You might want to let your head hang heavy in space. Alternatively, you might take a couple blocks. And this can be nice to have your forehead down on the blocks. Sometimes I find it gets a little bit less weight to my head. So depending on how your neck feels, your back feels, check in. It might be different day to day. So once you find yourself established, and I'm going to use blocks today, you can start to find that softening, a little bit of a letting go quality. And turn your awareness and your attention into your breath body. And I like to think of the breath as kind of the roadmap, essentially, right? You can use your breath to navigate, to explore, noticing what parts of you might feel more sensation and sending your breath to those areas. And if you found yourself in a position that does not feel sustainable, please feel free to make adjustments. In the practice of yin, we hold for a longer duration. And so making sure that it's a space that you feel both comfortable in, but also there's sensation, right? So we're not completely passive in the sense of nothing's happening. There's definitely a sensation happening. But if the sensation is so great that you don't think that you'll be able to stay, please do take your time to adjust. And then move back into your breath. You might choose from this space to stay exactly as you are. It might be appropriate for you to deepen into your posture by reducing the height of your blocks if you're utilizing them. It might be more appropriate for you to come up out of the shape a little bit, right? So maybe you add a block if you haven't been using them. And so take your time to breathe, to adjust as needed. Slow and steady breath in through your nose. And a slow and steady breath out. Wherever you are, we'll take 3 more cycles of breath. If your palms are turned up, slowly start to turn your palms back down towards the ground. And very gently take your time to start to gently walk your hands back. And slowly start to lift your torso. And eventually you can let your shoulders drop down, crown of your head finds the ceiling. And take a moment to feel that transition from your folding forward shape now to an upright seat. Walk your hands down by your sides to the left and right and start to slowly move your feet from left to right. So we're taking a windshield wiper starting at your feet, moving up through your ankles, your knees, your hips. And then gently come back to center. Set your blocks to the side if you're using them. Use your hands so that you can bend into one knee and then the other. Soles of your feet will find the floor. And I'll go ahead and turn sideways for this. So this time we'll bring soles of the feet together. And as the soles of your feet to come together, your knees will drop out wide. Now, up to you how close you want your feet towards the base, or you might bring your feet further away. So you'll kind of play around. You can notice what will happen in your knees as you move your feet further away or closer to you. Same thing here. You might choose to soften, right? So notice if you activate, that might be habitual. Take a moment to soften. And then when you're ready, you can start to fold yourself forward. Hands can be on your feet. It might feel more supportive to have your hands to the floor. You can stay in space here. Again, I'm going to utilize my blocks. And I'm going to take my blocks between my feet. So depending on where your head kind of falls, your blocks might be in front of your feet, might be between your feet, behind your feet. So again, it's going to be different for everyone. So take your time to set up your foundation. And when you're ready, well, actually my blocks are going to come a little bit forward today. Bring your forehead down to your blocks. Bring your forehead to drop down in space. And come back into the slow and steady rhythm of your breath. And checking in, noticing how sensation has shifted. And as you take the time to get familiar with this shape, are there things that you need to adjust, to change? perhaps to explore, so that you can maintain, right? Did you come right to the edge of sensation? If so, what does it feel like to back off a little bit? So giving yourself permission to explore and adjust so that you can find a space that's sustainable. And then come back into your breath. Taking a moment to check in. Allowing yourself to adjust if you need to adjust. Stay if you need to stay. And again, come back to your breath. Allow your body to stay as it is, moving into your last 3 breath cycles here. Slowly return your hands to the floor if they're not there already. Find an activation down to the floor in order to slowly start the process of unraveling. Eventually, you will come to an upright seat once more. Take your time, no rush. Let your hands rest on your legs, palms can be up. And take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more here. Again, use your hands to slowly draw your knees towards one another. Soles of your feet will eventually find the floor. and take your feet about hip width distance. I like to rest my hands on my shin so that I can have that connection of upper body and lower body. And then take 2 to 3 cycles of breath here, letting your hip joints be at a more neutral shape. Again, you might choose to move your blocks out and to the side. And I'm going to slide off my blanket for this. You're welcome to stay on your blanket or slide off, whichever is more comfortable. Bring your hands down by your sides. Walk your feet about as wide as your hips, maybe a little bit wider. And just as we took the windshield wiper from our ankles, now we'll take it from our knees. So you can drop your knees to one side. Perhaps you turn your gaze to the other side. And then gently come back through center as you make your way in the other direction. So take this as slow as you need to. You might get to a spot that feels good and you want to stay and breathe. Please feel free to stay. Your knees might continue to move in unison. Maybe you let one knee drop and the other knee follow. So take your time to explore here as well. And when you're ready, come back to center. Option to come back up onto your blanket and once more extend both of your legs long in front of you. This time we'll start to move into slight more of an activation. So think of drawing your toes back so that you can feel your legs engaging. Keep your left leg extended long. Put the sole of your right foot onto the floor. Your heel might be closer to your sit bone. Your heel might be further away. So again, different for everyone. And I'm going to keep my foot on the inside line of my left thigh today. For some of you, it might be appropriate to take your foot to the outside line, but just check in with your right knee and your right hip and see how you're feeling today. Once you have your foundation, think of drawing your left toes back, press your right foot down to the ground. So there's an activation in the lower half of your body. Take your left hand around your right leg. Right hand reaches behind you for the floor or a block. And then inhale from the base of your spine up to the crown of your head. Find a lift, find a lengthening. And as you exhale, slightly contract your navel by drawing your low abdominals in. And then as you start to twist to the right, you might notice that you need to adjust, right? That arm in the front might adjust, the arm in the back might adjust, so that you can find your rotation to the right. Gaze stays over to the right. You might continue to send your gaze somewhere behind you. And then wherever you find yourself, stay and breathe 3 full cycles. At the base of your third exhale, slowly start to unravel yourself back to center. Bend into your left knee, sole of your foot to the floor. Walk your feet about the same width and about the same space forward and back. Hands to your shins, lift up through your torso, full breath in at neutral. And a big breath out. One more. When you're ready this time, extend your right leg long. Bend into your left knee, sole of your foot, again, closer to your sits bones, might be a little bit further forward. So kind of play around with this side. Foot can be on the inside line. Alternatively, you might take it to the outside line of your right leg. Okay. Once you have your feet and your knees bent and extended in position, draw those right toes back. Press that left foot down. So I'm activating, right? I'm consciously activating the lower half of my body to find stability. Take your right arm around your left leg. Take your left hand somewhere behind you. And then we expand. Press down into your hand, press your sits bones down. Inhale, lift the crown of your head up. Exhale, send your breath out, slight engagement of your abdominals as you start to rotate over to the left. And then as you rotate, that might mean you got to adjust, right? So adjust, see what needs to shift, gaze to the side, or maybe you start looking somewhere behind you. And we'll maintain for 3 breaths. And take one more full cycle in through your nose. And out. Again, slowly unravel yourself back to center. Bend into your right knee. Bring your feet about hip width distance apart. Walk your feet so they're about the same length forward and back. Hands to your shins, let your shoulder blades drop down, lift up through the crown of your head, looking to find a neutral-ish space, right? So someplace where we can drop in and breathe. And so option is to either come to an upright seat, if that's comfortable. You might come onto your blocks, sitting in Virasana on your shins. Option to come to a cross-legged position, sitting in Sukhasana on a blanket or on your mat. You might choose to lie down on the floor in Shavasana, maybe with legs extended. You might put a bolster underneath your knees. Maybe you bend your knees. So really find a place, again, to be comfortable. You might come to an upright seat and sit in a chair if that's most comfortable. And so take the next few moments to find your position in your body. And then invitation, if it feels safe in your body, if it feels safe in your environment, to allow your eyes to close. You might choose to keep your eyes open and soften your gaze towards the floor if you're lying down towards the ceiling. And again, come into your breath body. And notice how the subtle shift of the inhale expands your torso, lifts your heart. And on your exhale, everything drops back in. And take 2 more expansive breaths here. So please feel free to stay wherever you are as long as you need, using your breath as your guide to move through your body. And thank you for taking time to explore, to breathe, to turn in. You have a beautiful rest of your day or evening.